Viewers and subscribers, welcome to Beating the Press podcast. Today, we are going to be reviewing the two gripping fixtures on the weekend. First, we're going to be looking at the Everton 1, Arsenal 0. Surprise win there for Everton, many would say. Then, we look at Spurs versus Man City. In that one again, the home team coming out 1-0 victors in the form of Spurs. Joining me today, we have returning with us Sugar Belly.
Greetings, viewers and subscribers.
We also have with us Kiri, the Crystal Ball man.
Crystal ball went wrong this weekend, but whatever, there's more than one way to skin a fish or to skin a cat. Sorry, man.
All right, viewers and subscribers. So we're just gonna jump straight into it. On Saturday, we saw the upset of the season thus far. Arsenal going down 1-0 to a rejuvenated Everton. Kiri, talk to us about that one. Give us your take. How did you see the match and what's your view on the result?
Um, I think everybody should now be a firm believer of the new manager's bounce. I think everybody should be a firm believer of that, to be honest. And if you check Everton stats, they have never really had a manager who came in and lost his first game. And it's a place that Arsenal has struggled with. I predicted a win for Arsenal, but the new manager bounce kind of got us off guard, to be honest. It was something else. The first half, disappointing. Although there were chances, Everton definitely bossed the game. And as I said previously in the last podcast, was that the midfield battle, and I mentioned that name. And I said, it's really up to him versus Partey and Xhaka. Partey had a little knocked out, but Onana, he got the man of the match award. And, he was somebody I touted in the Everton midfield that if this guy gets going, then can be problematic.
Yes.
Which that's where it worked out. We lost. But honestly, as an Arsenal fan, even despite the result that happened with the City Spurs match, which we will later get into, we lost, but we're not done.
Wounded,
We
just
could have got
wounded.
the 3 points. Yeah, we're slightly wounded, but the confidence that we still have in the team is one of those days. We lose this match, we know probably next match, our next 3 matches running out with 9 points. So Arsenal is at that level now where the fans are confident, the coach is still confident, the team is still confident. They just know that, this is just a small mishap. We get past it.
Yes, it was a very energetic performance by the Everton players, It was very much a case of manager of the month in the form of Arteta versus new manager. And we saw the impact of Sean Dyche taking over at Everton, and it was like a reborn,
Definitely.
rejuvenated. It was like a completely changed Everton team that we saw, full of running, full of energy, full of tackling. The fans were behind the team. It was a very
100%.
energetic performance by Everton, closing down spaces. As you mentioned, the midfield battle, the Everton tree of Onana, which you mentioned, Magai, and who was the other one? Doucouré. Those guys really
Yeah, man.
bossed the
Doucouré
midfield
had a good game as well.
compared to the Arsenal tree of Odegaard. Odegaard seemed to have gone missing in that first half. So
Yeah, man.
I think it
Yeah,
was
man,
a good
definitely.
result, a fair result, a deserved result, just based on the
Fully
performance
deserved.
that Everton put in. They limited the chances that Arsenal created and took the one from that set piece. So in my opinion, I predicted it, I called it, I saw it coming.
Yes, you did. Yeah, man. Kudos to you, man. But even
So
outside of the new manager's bounds, Everton on paper is not necessarily a bad team. They were just a poorly coached team. From Frank Lampard, they were just a poorly coached team. They weren't necessarily a bad team on paper. We could see that because they have
quality
players who
players.
have they have quality players who have the Premier League experience and have the ability to play. I'm not going to say on a sustainable high level, but they do have players who can create moments of magic. So, we can look for good things from Everton, and the team fits so well with Daesh. Remember, it's Daesh, former player who actually scored the goal.
And
You know,
who assisted as well.
right. So he has players there, and the build of the Everton team, especially hitting the defensive midfield to the back line, those tall, robust figures.
Right,
That's why he loves. So I think he would definitely enjoy life at Everton. We don't want to get carried away because of our 1-0 victory over the leaders, but
Mm.
there's hope. So let's see where that goes.
Sugar Billy, I'd like to bring you in at this point. We saw a very spirited performance from Everton. But how was the Arsenal approach? Do you think Arteta got it wrong? Well, you had mentioned in the preview that you were seeing some signs of dropping from the likes of a Martinelli, for example. Give us your take.
Well, yes, Arsenal definitely failed to match or even replicate the energy that Everton came out with from the first kick of the ball. Everton were there pressing them, winning those second balls in the midfield. So it's very interesting to see Sean Dyche at the helm at Everton. This team looks like it's almost ready made for him. You know, even the goal was made in Burnley basically because it was
Basically,
two former Burnley
facts.
players who played a part in that goal. So it's very excellent performance from Everton. Big 3 points in the relegation battle. So I'm proud of Everton's performance. In terms of Arsenal now, um, they failed to get hold of the game in the midfield, especially where Thomas Partey looked a bit out of sorts. He failed to cope with the overall energy of Onana and Doucouré. So Arsenal paid the price basically.
Indeed, they did. Indeed, they
Right.
did. Fascinatingly,
But
no, Sugar
I
Belly.
don't want, oh,
Oh,
right,
go
right,
ahead,
Rafa. I
Kerry.
don't
Go
want
ahead.
the
Go ahead.
party slander to go on. You understand? We just want to remind us that party came in with a knock, because he was even, at one point, persons were even still unsure if he was going to start the match because he came in with a knock. But, still got the head over Georgina because I think Arteta knew that Georgina still not really, he's physically fit, but we have to remember that there is physical fitness and match fitness. So I think Arteta knew that Jorginho still isn't match fit as yet. So Partey still got the nod to get
Correct.
the start over Jorginho. However, you could see that Partey was very uncomfortable. And to avoid risking or developing that knock into something way more serious where he might miss a span of a month worth of games, you just hook him. But the tactics for Arsenal, I don't see anything wrong with it. I don't see anything wrong with the starting lineup. It's just that Everton, we just have to give Everton the credit, plain and simple. We just have to give the Everton the credit. We can't really say, oh, Arsenal never show up. So that's what happened. Everton showed up, wanted it more, played a better ball. They seemed like the hungrier team, and they went for it. So not to downplay or say, oh, Arsenal, this, that, whatever. But we just have to give Everton the credit. Just have to give them the credit. They came out
Definitely.
at one point, they looked like prime Barcelona back in 2012, 2011. We just have to give them the credit. We just have to give them the credit, to be
Yes,
honest.
yes, yes. Everton did in fact play a very good game. They had the right tactics to pretty much uh two banks of four, doubling up on the wingers. So pretty much the tactics seem
Mhm.
to have been to pretty much cut the supply lines. So they pretty much
Right.
doubled up on the most dangerous players. They doubled up on the wing against Saka, utilizing the fullbacks along with the wide midfield players on both sides. And it was the same thing against Martinelli. Fascinatingly, though, Sugar Belly did mention the lack of form of a Martinelli. And I was doing some keen observation. But I think, Sugar Belly,
Mhm.
Martinelli's drop in form is probably closely linked with the introduction of Jinsenko. Jinsenko seemed to play a more central role rather than the traditional fullback role where you might see a fullback overlapping or underlapping. So what you find is that oftentimes Martinelli is left isolated against that double team with no one really making a run to assist him out of certain situations. So as a result, I think Martinelli's game is really suffering as a result of that specific role that Arteta has assigned to Zinchenko, where he is playing more as a optional midfielder to give bodies in the midfield so Arsenal can control the game a bit more. But we'll see how it goes. It's a bit
And
on
just
the
an additional
radar.
point on that, Rafa, if possible.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Not just Zinchenko, but it's ever since Jesus has really been injured. Because if you watch Arsenal previously in earlier parts of the season with Jesus would have drifted out left, and that would allow Martinelli to, whenever there's a double team, Martinelli could have easily cut in. Most of his shots and assists came from Jesus coming off that left. So Jesus used to shift from strike, go over to a bit to the left wing. Then we had Martinelli who would have sometimes cut in, similar to a striker role, a false nine role here and there. But with Nketiah now, Nketiah is an out and out number 9 striker. And Nketiah won't leave around, in and around the box to go to the left wing to give assists. He won't leave, go to the right wing. He's just in and around the box. He's an out and out number 9 like that. So that has somewhat cut down Martinelli's production, to be honest. But I think whenever Jesus is back, we'll see a different Martinelli because of that movement that Jesus gives to Arsenal, and Nketiah does not do that.
Okay, I see. All right, Sugar Belly. Key player performances though. Did any player performance stood out for you in particular?
Well, in terms of performance, I think Doucouré stood out to me the most because he was a shock in the starting lineup from my perspective. He hasn't played since August, I think so. It was very surprising to see him, and the level of professionalism that he came into this Everton side with, it was second to none. The energy was there, so I was most impressed with Doucouré in the midfield. So
Doucouré.
yes, man.
Indeed. He gave a very energetic box-to-box type of performance. In doing some research, he seemed to have fallen out with the previous manager, Lampard. He was basically training with the under-21s. But I guess Sean Dyche saw the quality he possessed and threw him right in the firing line, and he didn't disappoint any at all. So but overall, I concur with much of what you guys have mentioned, that it was more of a brilliant Everton performance in a deserving 1-0 win than really a lack thereof from the Arsenal team. But
yeah, man. Once again, Everton showed that on any given day, any team in the Premier League can turn up and put in
That
that
is it.
performance that is needed, as we mentioned in the preview, that they can turn up on any given day against any team and put in the performance needed to get all 3 points. And we saw exactly that
indeed.
from Everton.
And that's exactly what we saw on Saturday. But another big game took place on Sunday. Spurs running away 1-0 winners over Man City. Kiri, talk to us about that one. How did you see that one playing out?
Well, I honestly thought it was going to be a draw, because remember, I said it would have been a draw if Arsenal had beaten Everton.
Right.
City would have really,
Yes.
City would have really pressed on the gas, knowing. But I guess a bit of complacency that Arsenal lost, probably that has affected their mentality, even though, records will show that City going to Tottenham Stadium is a nightmare for Pep. They haven't scored a goal there up until this point. So it's really a nightmare stadium for them. I think everything that one point that everyone was kind of shocked with to an extent was De Bruyne was in the starting lineup. When that was revealed, a lot of persons kind of, raised their eyebrows. So that was I did too, but there's also a little thing going around about De Bruyne. I thought maybe a few seasons that he tend to go missing in big games. So I'm
Mm.
not sure if that's something that, Pep thought about, said, hey, maybe we need something different in the midfield. Who knows? Because we can all agree that De Bruyne is class. There must be a justified reason why, he was left out of the starting 11. But as we said, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So Arsenal lost. City come and do us a favor. So either way, the little goes to work. So we take it.
Oh, you
We
you
take
you
it.
you do raise a very compelling point there about De Bruyne. I am not sure I agree with that. However, De Bruyne over the years has been Man City's best player. So that was the surprise for me that he wasn't selected
Mhm.
in the starting 11 is that he is the top assist man in the EPL. So to have your best player on the bench was a bit surprising for me personally. But again, Tottenham, Kane, Kane was the difference. That early strike, taking the ball off or winning the ball off high up on the pitch in the Man City's defensive third. One pass and Kane finished clinically. It was Kane being present while it appears like the goal machine Haaland went missing. Talk to us about that, Sugar Belly. Why isn't Haaland firing away from home, it seems? It seems like most of his goals come at home, but he seems to go missing or oftentimes blank when he plays away from home. What's going on?
Well, I think we could give and take in the last few away matches where he has failed to score, but I think this game against Spurs was a new dawn where I think it's the poorest I've seen City all season.
Mm,
They failed to incorporate Haaland in the game any at all from the first minute to the last minute. Even when De Bruyne eventually came on, we see City still struggled to bring him into the game. So it's really, I think it's a Pep problem right now. I don't know where he has gone wrong in selecting his City side, but something is
Mhm.
clearly wrong at the moment, and he needs to figure it out soon as possible.
well, it appears as if it's the Pep tinkering again.
Yes,
Oftentimes in
yes,
certain big games, we see Pep springing some surprises, pulling a trick out of the hat. But more often than not, these tricks seems to fail. We
yes.
recall that Champions League finals against Chelsea a couple of years ago, and we see here again where uh he seemed to have placed a lot of faith in Rico Lewis in terms of him
Mhm.
playing a role where he's like an extra midfielder alongside Rodri. And the youngster came under tremendous pressures in this high intensity game. You know, he took a long time to get in the game to settle, and it seemed to throw off the entire City build-up. Spurs defended very well and
Especially Rodri.
limited the amount of chances that City could manage to create. I
Well,
don't believe Haaland had a shot in this game.
well, one thing I can draw from this Rico Lewis is that I have to commend Pep and his management of the youngster as well because I think many other managers in the Premier League would have hooked him at halftime, basically throwing him under the bus. And I admire Pep for sticking with him throughout this game, even though he was involved in giving away that early goal. But I have to give it to Pep to stick with the youngster. So hopefully it will pay off for him in the long run.
I indeed hope so. It can only get better from
Right.
here on in. But Kiri, talk to us. Were
Right.
there any key
Mhm.
performances that stood out in this one?
For me, I wouldn't say really, to be honest. As I said, the difference maker was Keane. So the key performance is not a positive performance for me. It was just how underwhelming. I would just have to be realistic. If Haaland doesn't get a goal, Haaland has zero impact on a football game.
Mm,
Well, I think we can just call it for what it is. If he doesn't score, he has zero impact on the game.
I
And
see, I
I think
see.
that's just what it is. He went out, didn't get a shot at. I don't think he even got a shot at all, much less to get one on target. And although, let's be honest, the production to him wasn't the best. I'll give him that. But I think for me, it's just that if without a goal, and he doesn't score, there's not much he gives Man City apart from the goal. So if Haaland doesn't score, Haaland has a bad game. And
Fascinating
we see
point there.
how detrimental, right? We see how detrimental that can be at a time like this, because if he doesn't score, the team looks really off. De Bruyne came on, didn't see much of an impact. The Rico Lewis Rodri, I think Rodri was more out of sorts than anyone with Rico Lewis coming into that midfield. Rodri kind of looked a bit out of it with Rico Lewis beside him there at times. So kind of underwhelming performance there. I think that was the key performances for me, how underwhelming City were in some departments.
Mm.
But
Fascinating point there.
kudos to
Fascinating
Kane.
point.
Get your chance, take it.
It seems to be a case of that's pretty much the difference between the two strikers. Kane being more of an all-round striker, while Haaland seemed to be pretty much one-dimensional, where
Right.
he's brilliant at putting the ball in the back of the net, but that's pretty much what you get. Kane, on the
That's
other
what you get.
hand, can all put the ball in the back of the net, but he also offers you assists. He offers you a bit of a defensive pressing high up on the pitch, and oftentimes he also drops into the little pockets in the midfield and creates space for those wingers who run beyond him. So I think that's the difference between the two strikers. Two brilliant players, two brilliant strikers, but some would argue that City might have got it wrong in terms of who they went for in last summer, where it was a case of them choosing between should we go with a Haaland or should we go with a Kane? They were heavily linked to Kane. So early days yet, we've just passed the half mark in the season,
Mm-hmm.
but there are rumors that City isn't playing to the strength of Haaland. It's taking them some time to adjust to getting out of that mindset of playing with that false nine, which they're oftentimes used to. So I see where Pep is trying to integrate Haaland and bringing in, I think, Alvarez as that second striker was part of that attempt, to have someone for Haaland to play off somewhat, as well as offer a bit more attacking going forward. But it seemed to have failed. It was a stalwart defensive performance from Spurs, I must say. And for me, my standout is the man who eventually got a red card, Romero. Romero was very aggressive in his
Mm-hmm.
tackle. He didn't give the City
And then
strikers
took
any
no
space to
prisoners.
turn, took no prisoners. So even though he ended up getting a red card, I think it was worth it because the type of performance he had pretty much set the tone from the first minute. So for me, the standout player for me was definitely, Romero and the sort of defensive work he did. Sugar Belly, what say you?
For
Yeah,
me,
man,
the
excellent,
standout
excellent. Can I get that?
for me, the standout player in this game was definitely Højbjerg. From the first minute, this man was the man for Tottenham on the weekend. He capitalized on every City mistake, you know, took pressure on them on those extra touches that they were taking in the midfield, especially Bernardo Silva. And even leading up to the Spurs goal, we see where Højbjerg stepped in and made the tackle, won the ball, even got the assist for Kane's goal. So it was a very inspiring Tottenham performance, one for them to be proud of. And at the end of the day, with Kane getting his record, it was a brilliant win at home in front of the fans.
Indeed. Well, it's been a fascinating week of action, viewers and subscribers. Is the title last for City? Who to tell? They have Arsenal coming up
Mm-hmm.
in short order. So the title decider may yet be ahead of us, but this definitely could be classified as a missed opportunity to close the gap. But I'd just like to thank our viewers and subscribers for sticking with us through the podcast. I'd also like to thank Sugar Belly and Kiri for coming on and sharing their profound thoughts with us. Please remember to share, like, and subscribe. And until next time, this is Rafa signing off.